Hey, World Entertainment, and it looks like that question of ethics is being brought back into Hollywood because it's been over a decade since we lost Paul Walker, and in the Fast and Furious universe, it's been just as long since Brian O'Connor drove off into the sunset. And you know, that ending of Fast and Furious 7 was pretty much a perfect and heartbreaking tribute. It felt like closure, not just for the fans, of course, and the cast, but even for that character. But the story isn't over. No, unfortunately, Vin Diesel has confirmed it. Yet, Brian O'Connor will return in the franchise final, Fast X Part 2. Now, the announcement has the entire fandom asking the massive, complicated question. And it's not about how they'll do it, because we know how they're going to do it. But the question is, should they? Are we about to see a final fitting tribute, or is a beloved legacy about to be tarnished for one last ride? And that is the big question. This is where the real ethics do really come into this question of, like, should they? It really is that Jurassic Park thing. It's, you didn't stop to say could you, it was should you kind of thing. So to get why this news is so divisive, of course, I have to go back to 2013 when his tragic death during a break in filming of Fast 7 left the production in an impossible spot, of course. A franchise built on the bond between Dom and Brian now had to figure out how to say goodbye when one of its pillars was gone. And the solution was a massive undertaking, of course, with director, who was it, James Wan, and the writers completely retooling the finals ending to make it happen. They brought in Paul's own brothers, Cody and Cable Walker, to act as stand-ins. And of course they did the CG, which, you know, this was never just about finishing a movie. It was about crafting a farewell. Weta Digital, of course, the VFX powerhouse behind the likes of Lord of the Rings, and they were hired to digitally map Paul Walker's face onto his brothers. The performances for over 260 shots, if you can believe that. The result was that iconic final scene, you know, Dom and Brian sharing one last drive, their paths splitting as See You Again, the song everybody fell in love with, played, and Dom's voiceover says it all, you know, saying you'll always be with me and you'll always be my brother. So we'll have a breakdown a bit about this. So we're looking at it saying, from a franchise known for insane spectacle, it was a beautiful, emotional and surprisingly quiet moment. It gave Brian a way out, retiring to be with Maya and their family, while giving Paul a tribute that felt respectful. In the movie sense, they've handled his absence with care. Characters mentioned they can't pull Brian and Maya back into the danger. Dom even names his son Brian. In Fast 9, when the family gathers for a barbecue, a blue Nissan Skyline pulls up, hinting that Brian has arrived, but we never see him. These moments kept his spirit alive without ruining that perfect goodbye for so many fans, of course, and the end of Fast 7 was the end of Brian's story, and it shouldn't be touched. That's exactly why bringing him back feels like such a huge risk. So if they're really going to do it, how? The tech they used in Fast 7 was groundbreaking, of course, but that was a decade ago. In the visual effects world, that's an eternity, basically. So today's filmmakers, of course, have a whole new set of tools that are way more advanced and, honestly, a little scary. They'll probably use a mix of techniques just like before, but supercharged with modern tech. So you need the foundation, the body doubles. Paul Walker's brothers, of course, Cody and Cable, have stayed close to the franchise. Cody even stood with Vin Diesel when the news was announced at FuelFest. So it seems very likely they would step in again to provide the physical performance. Their involvement gives the whole process a layer of authenticity and the family's blessing, which again I think is one of those questions you do have to keep bringing up. Like, even if the family at this stage gives you their blessing, it's like, should you still do it? Personally, I think no, but the real magic, or maybe madness, will come from digital creation. Of course, the CGI facial replacement for Fast 7 is way more powerful now, of course. Think about the digital de-aging in Marvel movies or The Irishman. Now imagine that mixed with the explosion of AI, like deepfake technology and AI-driven facial synthetics and stuff like that. So these systems can be trained on hours of Paul Walker's footage from the old films to create a photorealistic digital mask, if you like, that they can map onto a stand-in with terrifying accuracy. And that is the thing. Now, we have seen how it can be done really well, but we've also seen how it can be done not all that great. Again, looking towards Alien Romulus there, when they brought back Ian Holmes, of course, it didn't look great on the big screen, but then they fixed it for the Blu-ray release, and it looked slightly better. It still didn't look perfect, but it looked slightly better. And of course, it's not just the face. AI can also be used for the voice by feeding an algorithm enough of Paul Walker's dialogue. A model could be created to generate new lines that sound just like him. We saw a hint of this with Luke Skywalker in Book of Boba Fett, and the technology has also gotten better, which is also scary when you think of it. Then there's all the unused footage from the 6 movies Paul filmed. The team could use outtakes and deleted scenes. Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker famously, of course, built Carrie Fisher's entire posthumous performance around unused scenes. Of course, the issue they would run into doing that with Paul Walker is his age. He would be so much younger in the disuse, but of course, you could already be using the footage for flashbacks, so you don't know. It's possible they'll use a combination of all of this, of course. A body double for the presence, AI for the face and voice, and old footage for key emotional moments. The tools are there. The challenge isn't technical, it's ethical, and that is the thing. So just because you can do something, does that mean you should? This is the core of the debate, really. Bringing an actor back from the dead with CGI is an ethical minefield, and it all comes down to consent. An actor's face and voice are their instruments, and using them after they are gone feels troubling. Robin Williams famously, of course, saw this coming and put a 25-year ban on anyone using his likeness after his death, making sure he had the final say. And I wish a lot more people would do that. They should. Who is the actor who came out and said there's like absolutely no way you are ever digitally recreating me? I can't remember, but there is one, and I believe there is one that said it about their voice as well, which I think was a singer. But even with the family's blessing, of course, it's still complicated. You know, for many in the audience, seeing a CGI recreation of a beloved actor who has passed away can feel creepy and manipulative. You know, it risks throwing viewers into the uncanny valley. That weird feeling you get, you know, when something looks almost human, but your brain knows it's not quite right. The digital versions of Peter Cushing, of course, in Rogue One was technically amazing, but some critics called it ghoulish. Of course, that's with the eyes and stuff. It never quite works right. The bigger worry, of course, is the precedent it sets. Does this open the door for a future where any actor, living or dead, can be digitally dropped into a movie, you know, with their performances generated by a machine? And that, you know, if that happens, it blurs the lines between honouring a legacy and turning a person's memory into a digital asset to sell tickets. So some fans worry this is just a cynical cash grab to make sure the final movie is a box office monster, you know, and the filmmakers are walking a razor's edge. If they get this wrong, it could disrespect Paul Walker's memory and ruin the perfect tribute they already gave him. So how could a return for Brian O'Connor possibly work? So Vin Diesel himself laid it all out. After the FuelFest event, he revealed he gave Universal 3 conditions to return for the final, which is now planned for an April 2027 release, I believe. The conditions were: bring the franchise back to its LA roots, return to street racing, car culture, and reunite Dom with Brian. So this frames Brian's return not as a stunt but as essential to the final story. The franchise started with Dom and Brian, of course, so for Diesel it has to end with them, and the story likely won't have Brian jumping back into the action. That would betray his reason for retiring. The most respectful path would be a small but emotional, powerful role. Maybe Dom at his lowest point after Fast X goes to the one person he can always trust for advice. That would allow for a quiet, character-driven scene about the brotherhood that started it all. Another idea, of course, is that we might not see his face directly. They could use clever camera angles showing him from behind or silhouettes, maybe with a voiceover. This would let his presence be felt without leaning too hard on unsettling CGI. And the most important thing is to honour why he's been away. You know, why he's been away to be a father. Any return, though, no matter how short, has to reinforce that his family with Maya is his number one priority, of course. So showing that he's found peace would be the best way to close out his story for good. The goal isn't to resurrect Brian O'Connor for another car chase. The goal is to say final, definitive goodbye to the character and the actor as part of the franchise's grand final. So this is really one of those most ambitious and controversial moves in modern blockbuster history. You know, the tech is there. The family seems to be on board for whatever reason, but the risk of getting it wrong is massive. And like, what do you think about bringing Brian O'Connor back? You know, is it a beautiful way to honour Paul Walker's legacy, or, of course, is it a step too far? How would you want to see them handle it? Do let me know that in the comment section. Do let me know what you think about it. Because personally, for me, I do feel like it is a cash grab. Like, the fact that you know the actor is dead. Yes, the technology is there, but the fact that you know the character is dead. Well, not the character, the actual actor. And one of your stipulations for the final movie is, I want to hit that character back. That makes zero sense. So to me, it does sound like a bit of a cash grab, and I think you do, regardless of whether you pull it off or not, you do undo that ending of that character and that goodbye tribute to Paul Walker himself. You undo that from Fast 7, and there's no getting around that. No matter what happens with the next movie, you undo that goodbye, and I don't think fans will appreciate that. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Personally, I don't think they should do it, but they're doing it apparently. So do let me know what you think about that in the comments. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.